This is The Grain, and today we're going to be talking about the Democrat primary and specifically the most recent Super Tuesday results. So, as everyone knows, it looks like Joe Biden actually performed very well this past Tuesday and is outperforming Bernie Sanders to this point. And, I think everyone was expecting Bernie to really kind of pull away this Tuesday and, expecting to have great results in California, Texas. But it turns out that, Joe Biden was able to get a lot of the black vote and the people came out and they supported him. So, for me, that wasn't a huge surprise. I feel like there's been a lot of hype around the Bernie Sanders movement for the past few years, and there's been a concerted effort to try to, promote him as being the new face of the Democratic Party. But I think there's a lot more people who are kind of the moderate mindset throughout the country than I think the media, oftentimes talks about. And so I think that's being reflected right now in the votes. But we'll see what's going to happen over the next couple of weeks. We still have a lot of states to go, but just based on the trends right now, it looks like this is going to be Biden's nomination to lose. So,
Who do you think is for Bernie Sanders at this time? Like, what is the national demographic that is for Bernie Sanders?
well, I think you think about the Democratic Party overall, right? I mean, I think it's an interesting mix. So you have the foundation, the base of the party, which is the black vote. That's the black vote, and that's why I think Biden really pulled away in the South. But then you also have the other side, which is more of the white liberals. And I think if you look at how things kind of played out in the early states, your New Hampshires, your Iowa, and Nevada, where Bernie did very well, that was really representing more of the white liberal wing of the party. And I think that's really who Bernie Sanders kind of speaks to right now, in addition to the Hispanic side. But I think ultimately, again, I think even with that, you have a lot of more blue collar white Democrat voters who he was not able to bring in. He wasn't able to expand his base to include them, and he definitely wasn't able to penetrate the black base. Black base. So why do you think that was? Why do you think his support right now has been so focused on the white liberals?
I honestly don't think it's focused on the white liberals. I think it's focused on the younger population. I think it's focused on which happen to be white and like Latino and black. It's specifically focused on progressives and that are of different races and not necessarily just whites. The thing is that he did well in Nevada, which has a large Latino population.
Hmm.
He did well in New Hampshire and I think Vermont,
Well,
right?
where there are no black people, there are three
Which
black people.
where there are white people, and he did well in Iowa, but he didn't do well in South Carolina, which is where most of the black people are.
Right.
So I'm wondering how, and that's why I asked the question of like who is his base, like who is supporting him, and honestly, I think it's the younger population. I think it's like younger college educated and non-college educated individuals who are hearing about some of the things that he is proposing for when he gets elected. And that's not really it. And honestly, these are individuals who probably are not going to go to the polls. But there's something about the black population. I think it could be the younger blacks that are leaning towards Bernie and Elizabeth Warren versus the older blacks. So I think it could be like the younger Latinos, the younger whites, and the younger blacks that are really for Team Bernie versus the older of the demographics. That's what I think.
Yeah, I think there's something to that. But I mean, but are we seeing that many younger black people come out and vote for Bernie? Because I mean, I didn't
That's
see a
the
huge turnout on that end either.
that's the thing. Like that's the people that Bernie is picking up are people who don't vote
Right.
generally, except for the ones in his neck of the woods, in his state. So I mean that's what happened with the Super Tuesday. I mean people came out. Let's be real. Like people came out to support Bernie. He came in second place
Oh yeah.
in all of these primaries, but are they going to come to vote for him one when it really matters, which is like there's another Super Tuesday coming up? Like are they going to vote for him, or is Biden going to continue to like ride this wave of momentum that he's had since the South Carolina primary.
But here's the thing, yeah, you're right. I mean, people came out and voted for him. He came in second. He's still very much in the race. But I would argue that it actually was even worse than that because, really the moderate vote was split between Biden, between Buttigieg, between Klobuchar and Bloomberg. And so the fact that he still was losing, even though it was divided, what's that going to say for him, next week when now it's just him and Biden? And he's also doing worse than he did 4 years ago against Hillary. So he seems like he's always losing ground compared to where he was, a few years ago. So I guess going back to it, like, why do you think that black people, even the younger ones, aren't really coming out for Bernie like that? Because a lot of things he's saying, he has, I think his campaign manager is, she's a black female, and a lot of things he's saying, he said he feels like, whether it's the higher minimum wage or just a lot of the policies he's putting in place, free education, free healthcare. These are things that in theory should benefit the black community, or at least, the lower income black community. So why do you think people aren't coming out and voting for him?
Honestly, I think that the reason why people didn't come out was because they had things to do. I mean, I think things are easier said than done. And so when you're on Facebook and when you are in your groups of people, it's easy to like talk about, hey, I think what Bernie has to say is great. It's easy to participate in a poll that's online from your phone or from the computer saying, "Oh, I like what Bernie has to say. I like his policies." I think it's a little harder to get your behind into your car, leave your job, leave your office, leave your kids, and go vote for somebody who has these policies that you're interested in.
Yeah, but black folks came out and they found a way to get to vote for Biden. I mean, same people might have kids and have other stuff going on. It was like, hey, we're gonna get to the polls to vote for Joe. So why was that the case? Why did they go vote for Joe, but they couldn't get there for Bernie?
Honestly, I think this is an older population. I think younger kids, younger individuals might not have the means, to do so, or they might not have the wherewithal. They might not want to.
So yeah, I mean, yeah. So the black vote didn't come out for Bernie, and I understand people have things to do and everything. But can you say the same thing about the black Biden supporters? Because they found a way to come out and vote and support Joe on Tuesday. So what do you think is the difference? Why did they come out, but they did, but the Bernie supporters didn't come out?
Well, I think they didn't come out. I think the Biden supporters came out because they're an older population. They are individuals who might have retired, who don't have anything to do but vote, and it could be also individuals who have the means to come and vote. Individuals who are the black class of individuals who might be a little more wealthier, might be able to take their lunch break and come and vote, might be able to stop by the precinct and come and vote after work. And older black individuals who are more likely to vote for Biden or who might be on Biden's side might also be more aware of the importance of voting in primaries. The younger population, especially those who might not be aware of the whole electoral system, might not be aware of the fact and the importance of voting before the actual general election in November to get the Democratic candidate, like to let Bernie win that candidacy. They may not be aware of what they need to do, and so might be like, yeah, go Bernie, but they might not even know that it's important for them to vote for him so that he can become the Democratic nominee. Whereas older black individuals might know what they need to do to get Biden to win the Democratic candidacy. And at the end of the day, this is not over yet. We are just getting started. We might not know what Bernie supporters might be doing for this next Super Tuesday primary election.
Well, I think it's actually a simpler reason than that. I just think black people generally, I think we're looking at this more pragmatically. I think most black folks, the real issue we have is really with Trump. And I think at the end of the day, we're kind of looking at it as, okay, well, who's the guy that's probably got the best chance of beating Trump? And I'll be honest, you're just looking at these debates. I don't think anybody looks good. I don't think anybody's going to beat Trump. It's kind of it's looking a little sad right now. But I think black folks are kind of looking at this and saying, well, there's no way that Bernie Sanders, with all his extreme ideas and all this other stuff, that he's going to be able to win the middle class vote. And so I think they're just looking at, okay, well, who's the safest choice? Who's gonna give us the best chance to compete? And honestly, I think there's a part of this that kind of feel like, hey, this is Obama's guy. This is his boy, and we want to make sure we want to say, hey, let's try to back him a little bit. And then also there's a chance that we get to see Barack Obama, on the campaign trail. Because honestly, I think that's Joe Biden's only real hope at this point. I think if he wins the nomination, his main hope against Trump is he's going to need Barack Obama to come out and campaign for him and get people excited. Because Joe by himself, that I don't see that happening. I mean, he's struggling. I mean, he's naming, he's saying his wife's his sister and his sister's his wife. I mean, he's saying some crazy stuff on the stage here, and I got concerns about the debate with Trump. Got some real concerns here. So Joe needs all support he can get right now, and that includes Barack Obama.
Trump has a way of simpling things down and aka dumbing things down for his base, and honestly, that's a very good way. I think a lot of times Democrats make things so complicated that it's hard for, I guess, the normal American to really get behind what they're saying and or to interpret and comprehend what Democrats are saying and going for. I think Trump has, and whoever is working for him, has a way of making things simple and plain so that his supporters, who, in my opinion, many of whom don't have a lot of education, are able to just grasp what they hear, and a lot of it might be false information, but it's easy for them to pick it up. And so already Trump has Crazy Bernie and Sleepy Joe. And those are just something that is just very simple that can confirm his base to be like, yep, they're crazy, yep, he's sleepy, and I don't want to vote for him. And I'm not saying that Democrats need to do the same thing, but I think that Democrats need to simplify what they are for. Trump it's very clear, even if it's not the best for our country or not, or it is. Trump, his message is very simple, very clear. Well, what is the Democrats' message?
Right, and I think that's a great point. That's actually what I was about to say. I think it's kind of the same issue the Democrats have had, really going back to when the whole roles kind of reversed with the Republican Democrat Party after the '64 Civil Rights Act. The Democrats are a very fractured, very splintered kind of party. We're kind of a collection of variety of different groups. So you have your black voter bloc. Then you have your more liberal northern whites, and then you have your gay population. You have just a kind of a very tenuous alliance of different groups that are trying to hold it together for the party. And so what happens is that it's hard to have a single message because you have so many different people that you're trying to appease. Whereas I think on Trump's side, as you were saying, it's easier for him to just simplify things and say, hey, you know what? We got to cut the taxes and too many immigrants coming in, and he's paying to pretty much the same kind of people for the most part. So it's easier to unify there. I think what the Democrats are going to need to do right now is we need to have someone that's a charismatic figure that's going to find some common ground, something that all Democrats can kind of rally around and get people excited. So I think with Barack Obama, everyone at that point, it was in a recession, and everyone was tired of George W. Bush. And most importantly, Barack Obama was very charismatic. He was a fresh face. And so people were able to get behind that. He's this cool black guy who's running for office, be the first black president, and just seemed like something that would be very historic. And I guess people kind of got caught up in the celebrity of it all. And that's what unified the Democratic base. And things were just so tipping. I mean, Bush screwed up everything. I mean, everything was so bad. I mean, gas is high. The economy's falling apart. I mean, it was like the country was just like, well, things are so bad. A black guy can't do much worse than this. So we're gonna let the black guy. That's how bad things had gotten. So I think right now Democrats are trying to use Trump as the rallying point, and to a degree, I think that helps. But I think folks are also kind of looking at it and saying, well, wait a minute, are things that bad? I mean, as bad as Trump is in a lot of ways, you got to come up with something more than just saying, oh, Trump is bad, because a lot of folks' lives, really haven't changed very much in the last 3 years since he's been in office. They may not like some of the rhetoric, but they're not feeling it right now, as they did when Obama was in office, when the economy was just a mess. So I think right now Democrats have got to find a way, rather than everybody just fighting each other and saying, well, I'm a progressive or you're a moderate and, all this other stuff. And we got to find something to say, hey, this is why we're clearly better than the Republicans, and then drive that point home. And I think that's what they're struggling with right now.
I think at the end of the day, we have to ask ourselves, has my life gotten better in the past 4 years, whether economically, socially, whatever, has my life gotten better under this administration? And if not, then who do I believe would best do things and put things in place in the government, if or not, to improve that life. I don't think people will take enough time to think of, okay, what is this person's policy, and how will this
Mhm.
candidate's policy help my life? Well,
Right.
and maybe they do. They just don't come out and vote.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think the tough part about this is that Trump came into a very smooth, ideal situation. That Obama left him in a very strong, economy, a strong, just overall, political environment, and he had a Republican Congress when he came in. So we haven't really seen Trump be tested, on anything where there's any kind of crisis or anything where he had to show true leadership until this whole coronavirus thing, which he's failing at right now. And so the thing that I think voters are going to have to do, that I think is going to be in Trump's favor, is they got to be able to project how his leadership style is going to play out over the next 4 years when we actually do have more like issues or more crises, And I think most people don't have that kind of foresight. They're just kind of looking around and saying, well, things are good now. So is it even that, is it worth going out and voting against them? The status quo was all right. So that's when I think that's really works in Trump's favor. That coupled with the fact that, like I was saying before, the Democrats don't really have a true rallying cry of saying, well, this is how we're specifically making things better. This is a real problem that people are having. I know everybody talks about the healthcare thing, but I do wonder how many younger people are really feeling that. How many people are really feeling like, well, I gotta. A lot of young folks don't even go to the doctor like that. So you really want to start paying more money for other people's insurance, and I don't know if that's going to be a big rallying cry. That's an urgent enough issue. Um, so I think that's just going to be the thing. Democrats got to find somebody charismatic to do it. And honestly, I don't think it's going to be the 2020 election that we're going to see that. I think they may have groomed some people for a 2024 cycle, but I just think right now everybody's going with Biden. It's the safest choice. It's the anti-Trump.
And I don't know if I should really say this, but I don't see. I see Trump getting another 4 years, and that's honestly because I don't know if Biden can really. I don't know if Biden can beat out the the Trump base, who is they're so close and they're so
They're
for
fervent.
Trump.
Mhm.
Like Trump can literally do anything.
Right.
I've never seen in my life a situation where a human being can literally say anything he wants about anybody in the most derogatory way, and people who pride themselves as being Christians, people who pride themselves as being upstanding human beings, who pride themselves on being moral, which is kind of what the Republican Party supposedly stands for.
Mhm.
they they are so behind a man who does not care about what he says and how he says it. And I know that a lot of Americans are over this whole PC kind of era, this PC agenda where no one can say how they truly feel. But I think there's a difference between saying how you feel and being like disrespectful,
Right.
being rude, being hateful.
Mhm.
And I don't think Americans see that, especially his face. Um, Now I think that there's a whole other extreme as well, where it's like we take PC culture to a whole new term where you literally can't say
Right.
anything. But that doesn't mean that we can just forget how to act as human beings.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't know where I was completely going with
No,
that.
no, that's a
but
great point. No, I totally agree with that. And I guess what I would say is this is kind of my problem that I have with the Republican Party is that I might agree with some of their ideals. There's a lot of things about Republican ideology that makes perfect sense. Whether it's you have to go out and take care of yourself, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, build your own businesses, don't be so reliant on the government. I can fall in line with all that stuff, and even some of the your I guess your social values, family units, all that great stuff, the importance of all that. But they don't practice what they preach. They don't apply that to their own people the way they apply it to everyone else. So, like for example, I mean, they went after Barack Obama about everything under the sun during his presidency. If Barack Obama had done half the things that Trump has done, I mean, you talk about having any kind of relationship with a foreign government, you talk about cheating on his wives, all these scandals that have come out with Trump. Had those same things gone on with Obama, they would have immediately called for impeachment. They would have said this person is a threat to the United States security, and this is a disaster. This is horrible. I mean, but yet when it comes to their guy Trump, they defend everything he does, and so to me, it just kind of shows the hypocrisy. And it even goes back to again, you talk about in the past where Republicans constantly are doing things and going against policies that are trying to make things equal for other races and other genders. So like the Civil Rights Act, you have a lot of conservatives who are against that, and their whole thing is like, well, we feel like they want to say that, hey, you know what, we shouldn't need any federal government policies or anything coming in to force people to change their behavior, but yet you're denying people who are qualified, you're denying people jobs, you're denying people a right to a certain life, just because of the color of their skin or because of their gender. But yet you want to turn around and talk about how everything's about your personal efficacy, your own work ethic, so just very selective. Yeah, it's just this selective moral outrage that I think a lot of conservatives have, and they kind of just like to pick and choose who into when when they want to be fair and when they want to be all about moral uprightness, and when they don't care about it anymore. And that's my biggest problem with the Trump presidency, and also just sets a bad tone and a bad message for the overall country. But you don't see any of the Republican politicians coming out and talking against him.
Nope.
And you're not even just, and even if you go beyond the social issues, you talk about even just like fiscally. Republicans have always been about fiscal conservatism. It's about, we got to reduce the deficit. That's what they, hammered Obama about. But then Trump comes in office, does a historic tax cut, blows up the deficit, and very few people outside of Rand Paul and maybe a couple others, very few people on the Republican side had anything to really say about it or, to vote on it. So that's my biggest thing. So,
but the thing is, the reason why is, honestly, I believe Republicans, many of the Republicans in Congress don't like Trump and or the way he handles things. But his base is so strong, they want to keep their jobs. So they're going to do whatever they need to do, which means, in a lot of ways, agreeing with what Trump does, because they want to be reelected in the next election. They're going to do whatever he says. They're going to agree with whatever he wants. They're going to not impeach him, even though they might think that his whole Ukraine activities and behavior was completely terrible. But they're going to do whatever they need to do to keep their cushy job in Congress.
yeah, and that's just incredibly weak. I mean, it's sad. I think you're 100% right. And you look at Congress, regardless of party, it's supposed to be a check on the presidency. And if you got a president that's cutting deals and doing things with foreign governments and that's doing anything that's threatening the national security in any kind of way, and also just saying things that creates divisiveness in the country, you should be a check on all that. And I think the thing that's really going to backfire on them is, I think what's going to happen when we have the next president. So yes, I agree that Trump, it's a good chance he's going to probably win this re-election and be the president in the next 4 years. But when we get our next president, and say it's a Democrat, what are they going to do when this person starts rattling off things and starts talking off the cuff and just starts, inciting stuff, and you already saw a little bit of that with Chuck Schumer. He was going after, after the Supreme Court over the abortion ruling, and so, I think people are going to start saying more and more off the cuff things, and you can see even more of that divisiveness, in the country. So.
Well, so this is the grain. So I know that means that we say things that might not be what most Black Americans might say in public or to each other. So I wonder, okay, so why might you vote for Trump?
Yeah, well, okay. Well, I guess this kind of goes to a broader picture for me. I mean, just when you look at the Black community, I think at some point we've got to take a step back and say, what exactly do we need to change? What exactly are our demands? Because I think we've kind of gotten past the point of what politics can really do for us. I think there was a time, if you go back to the 60s, if you go back, to slavery, go back to different eras, I think there was a time where, politics was very important in advancing, the Black community, just in terms of just providing us rights and access to advancement in the country. But I think we're at a point now where there are opportunities for you to advance yourself and to pull yourself up. And I think there are chances and opportunities out there for us. But now the question becomes, what are we going to do with those things, and how and what can change? And so when I look at the Black people, and we have control over the Democratic Party, it's all great and all. I mean, but then it's like, well, what do we want the politicians to do? What can be done to change our plight? And I think that ultimately starts with us. And I think there are a lot of conservative ideals we could embody, whether it's, building a stronger family unit, focusing more on entrepreneurship, building our own culture up, and so to where we can, we can strengthen ourselves. And that's what will actually help us. We can stay in the Democratic Party, But I think we can still adopt some of these conservative principles within our own community. I think we need them more than anybody. You start talking about how you need to keep your family together. Well, black people more than anybody needs to have fathers in the homes. You talk about the need for guns. I mean, we need to be able to protect ourselves. We can't call the cops and have them come help us. I mean, they're probably arrest us. So you know what I'm saying? So we need to be able to take care and defend ourselves. These are conservative ideals. But we also know that Republicans, conservatives, oftentimes are very hypocritical. So they'll say those things, but they only mean that, or a lot of them at least, only mean that for white people. So we can stay in the Democratic Party, but we got to do things to kind of fix our own community up. We can't rely on politicians to save us. Because if you look at a lot of the cities that are run by Democrats, that includes Baltimore, Chicago, a lot of the cities are in states that are run by Democrats. Oftentimes, black people in a lot of ways have it the worst there. So we got to look at ourselves at some point and say none of these parties are going to save us. We got to be able to save ourselves. So, regardless. So if you talk about why I would vote for me, I wouldn't vote for Trump because I don't like him as a leader. I don't think he's a good. But I think it's because ultimately there are a lot of ideals that the Republican Party talks about that make sense to me. And you talk about family values and all that stuff. They don't always practice it. At least they're pushing those things. And when I look at the Democrats, for me it'd be more because Democrats have just gone so far to the left. Now we're seeing it come back to the center with Biden, but a lot of these ideals are so far to the left. Whether it's I don't have anything against LGBT community, but I think a lot of times their rights are starting to become impede on the rights of heterosexuals. And I think there's some things that the Democratic Party are doing right now to pull themselves so far to the left, where you almost feel like to get any sense of normalcy, you almost have to go a little more to the right and go more to Trump. So that would be the reason why I would consider voting for Trump. It's just because there are some people on the extreme left that are just taking the party way too far to the left of things that just don't make common sense. But outside of that, I don't see myself doing it. What about you?
Well, honestly, I don't know who I'm going to vote for, and we definitely don't have time to unpack everything that you said in regards to the state of the Democratic Party and whatnot. But we will get to a lot of the issues that you talked about, and I think for me, I'm just more concerned about the morality of our society, which I think has seen a sharp decline as I've gotten older, and so I will want. I think for a lot of people, what's more important now really isn't the morality of our society. It's really more so about the policies that whoever they are voting for is going to kind of endorse. And I think that's why a lot of people have voted for Trump, is because that he pushes through a lot of the policies that they are interested in. And that's really shameful, because at the end of the day, it's not just about your policies, it's about the human being that is pushing through those policies and the leader that you are ascribing to our country. And so I'm on the fence. There's some policies that I'm for that are occurring with this administration, and there are some policies that I think were great during the Obama administration that I think need to come back. And hopefully we can talk about that in another recording.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for preaching. I appreciate that. So, all right, everyone. Well, again, we'll talk more about this in the future, but for now, everybody stay against the grain. Peace.